we have that going. Let's see what ends up popping in here. Let's bring this down just a little bit. What's up, Buell? How's it going? Got this thing cooking in here right now. What's up, Toby? So I've got that light turned off so y'all can actually see a little bit more of the heat that we're going to be going on with this. What's up, Duck? So, of course, what's up, DL? What we're doing tonight, what we're working on tonight is a GoMai billet. This is, of course, 5 layers as opposed to a SandMai billet being 3. We're doing a 5-layer billet here. It is starting from the outside, going through to the other outside. It is 1084, then 15 and 20, and then a ladder pattern Damascus, and then 15 and 20, then 1084. So the core for this is ladder Damascus. So that's what we're going to be working on tonight. I've got it cooking in the forge. I've had it in there for about 9 minutes so far. So straight. So we're working on a GoMai billet. We're going to be forging it out. Now I am going to do kind of a rough profile for this. So we're going to be forging it and getting it into a billet. And then I am going to go ahead and do kind of a profile. I'm not going to get too crazy with the profile because I don't want to shift the core off too much. And you definitely don't forge to finish a GoMai billet because you don't want to forge in the bevels. If you forge in the bevels on a GoMai billet, you compress all of that down. And then whenever you grind it back, your outer layer stays really low on the blade. And we want to expose as much of that core as possible because that's where the Damascus is. And we want to have the nice transitions going down the bevels. So you want to grind in your bevels on something like this, not forging them. But I will do a rough profile on this as well so that y'all have a profile done. But the goal for this, I was thinking about using the power hammer. I'm just going to forge it by hand and stretch it out and do all that stuff with. We're going to start setting the welds with the dog head hammer, the 2 Masters dog head. We're going to set the welds with that. We are going to be stretching it out with the 2 Masters fat peen. We're going to be working with that to stretch the billet out and get length out of it because we don't want to make the whole entire billet big. We want to get length out of it, compress it down, and get ourselves a blade. This bad boy should be fully soaked. I'm going to give it another minute and let it heat up just a little bit more, just to make sure that we're perfect on the actual temperature for setting the welds on this. See if I can match your numbers. We'll see. I will tell you this. You get better response on the live streams whenever you do them around lunchtime. So anywhere from like 10 a.m. to like 1 p.m. that is like peak people watching stuff. I don't know if it's because they're watching it because they're on the toilet or whatever. They're just in their jobs and they don't want to be paying attention to anything, so they get on there. Because all my largest live streams have all been at that, just before lunch, going slightly after. The ones with the like 120,000. Doing it on Saturday night, not that easy, but Friday I work 10 hours and then I come out here and do this. Saturday I work 10 hours and then I come out here and do this. Same thing for Sunday, 10 hours at my regular job. So I can't do any of this during the week. But if my job changes a little bit, I might be doing a live streams earlier on Saturdays. All right, so this is hot enough. I've got the forge set up so that it is piping hot. That bad boy is shooting out a flame about a foot out of the face of the forge, and it is cooking. So I'm happy with that. So can anyone help me with this out of my forge? 50 times more subscribers than me. Yep, I should, but you know what? Algorithms are algorithms, my man. It doesn't matter what I'm doing here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. All right. And for the first part of this, I'm not going to be doing anything eye-catching or interesting because all I'm doing is taking a rectangle and making it into a longer rectangle. That is the one downside to making Damascus on a live stream or forging something like this on a live stream is there's nothing striking about it. All I'm doing is just forging a hot piece of steel into a same shape of the hot piece of steel. I'm not like making a big blade or anything that like catches people's attention. Although you gotta admit, drifting holes in blocks, it's kind of the same thing. I'm happy that you've had a lot of success with that. All right, bring this out, start whacking it. Right back in. Get that hot again. Do that again. All so we can set these welds. Yeah, and I will tell you this, you would think that the subscriber count would matter with the live streams, but it really doesn't. Because you'll have people that have like 2 million subscribers get like, 350 views on a live stream. Or like, I've watched Jason Knight, who has a way bigger following than me, that he'll do a live stream and he'll get like 1,500 views. And this is like Jason Knight. This is, a lot bigger person than me, or Neil Kamamura, or a few of these people, and they will get like, 500 views or like 1,500 views for one of theirs. Got a question? What's better, a top burner forge or a side burner? So for me, I want a side burner forge because I like for my burner to blow at the wall and rotate around. It creates a vortex inside there, and at no points is my burner blowing at my steel. So I can have the steel in there. It doesn't have hot spots blowing on a spot of the steel or anything like that. So I can put the steel all across the floor of the forge, and at no point is the flame directly hitting it. If you put the burner at the top, you got to put all your steel on the edges of the forge. So for this, it blowing in on the side, I can put the steel, line it all across the whole bottom, and I'm good to go. So right now, we're making sure that it gets nice and hot again, so that we can then go ahead, keep setting those welds. I'm just working my way all the way around the face of it, down the center, around the face, working on it, and then getting it to where we can set the welds all the way around it. We want to keep this thing nice and hot while we're doing this. So what I did was I welded the corners of this. So I layered everything together, put it in my little vise that I have attached to the top of this post right here, and welded the corners, then welded the piece of rebar that I have on there. That's my stick, my holder. And then I soaked it in kerosene for about the last hour. It's just been in the kerosene bucket that I have. Finally ordered a new one. Heck yeah. That Atlas forge is awesome. So I went ahead and did that, and then I went and put it in here, and I've had it soaking for a while to just make sure everything's getting nice and hot. Back in. I'm going to brush that forge scale off a little bit. Go back in, close that back a little bit. You want to keep as much of that heat in there as possible. Just go ahead and toss this down here because we'll need it. But again, what we're doing when we're setting these welds is we're just getting light taps all the way around, getting them nice and set before we actually start drawing that out. So one of my things that I'm planning on doing is getting a ribbon burner forge. There is a company here in Texas that will actually have me come out and build a forge with them. They have a build-along process, a class for building the forge, and you get to watch that and participate in building your own forge and doing all that stuff. I plan on going, taking that class, and coming back with a ribbon burner forge. So I'll be filming that whole entire process, so that y'all can actually watch that as well. What's up, Coulter? How you doing? Just tap, tap. Yep, correct. Just tap, tap, tap. What's up, Matt? Whenever it comes to doing this, you want to keep this nice and hot while we're actually doing this, setting it and everything. Don't get antsy or anything like that and then pull it out too soon and start whacking on it again. You really want to set the welds. Doing all the stuff that we're doing by setting these and making sure that it's a solid billet moving forward, it's going to make everything else way better. You want to get a nice solid chunk of steel so that whenever we start compressing it with the straight peen, when we start hitting the hell out of it with the straight peen, we don't want the ends to open up. Because what can happen with this is whenever you start forging that and you start putting in those valleys, the ends almost want to open up on you. So if we have our billet, not a very good billet, but we got our billet right here. What happens is when we start putting pressure here, like here, and we start creating little valleys on there, if this edge is not welded right here, and this edge is not welded right here very well, I mean forge welded, what'll happen is these layers will start lifting up and separating like that. They'll start opening up, and you don't want that. Then you gotta flux it, push it back down again, and hope that you don't have screw ups or anything like that. So even though you weld the corners of these with a welder, you still want to make sure that everything is fully forge welded before you start doing everything. Nice. Okay, let's go ahead and pull this back out. Whack on it some more. are doing this with no flux. That's the whole point behind this. Now, I will tell you, one of the easiest ways to do a GoMai or a GoMai billet without having any flux is you can just weld all the way around the billet, and at that point you don't have to worry about air getting in there, and you're fine. New scales, yeah. Oh, speaking of EDCs, these are the ones that I've been working on. I showed them off a little bit, but these were ones that I forged. So I went ahead and forged a full set of them. And they worked out real well. The whole set. These have full distal tapers and all of that from the actual forging process, but I wanted to do some EDCs and I wanted to forge all of them and have them all be forged exactly how I wanted them to be and all match and all be symmetrical and even and all that. Those are 26C3. They're going to have a brute to forge finish on the blades plus hamones. So they'll be ground, but the tops of the blades, almost like where your flats are, those are going to be that brute to forge texture. And then coming down from that will be a hamone line. And then it's going to be cool. They're going to be really, really cool looking EDCs. I haven't done a shuriken yet. I do throwing knives and stuff like that here and there. What you're looking for during this is for your layers to be cooling down at the same rate. If you see all of the layers cooling down individually, that means they're not the same heat, they're not forge welded. So yeah, if you want it to be a homogeneous thing. Yes, and that's all I'm doing right now is just consolidating the billet. I'm just forging it down. So on the first heats for this, because we have 5 layers of steel that we're trying to forge weld together, we've got to just compress everything together and get it to stick, to get it to become a solid piece of steel so that we can then start stretching out and moving. So these first steps is just me taking this setup and compressing it down a little bit, forging evenly all across the face, both sides, getting that forge weld to stick, and then we're going to stretch it out. Where I can get a 6-pound cross beam for stuff like this? Absolutely. You can get one from Two Bastards if you want. So That's my 5-pound cross peen from Two Bastards. That is a big hammer to be able to swing and do your thing with it. But yeah, that's a 5-pound. He could absolutely do a 6-pound if you wanted a 6-pound. That's the old Two Bastards. You can see right there. But can I play Warhammer? Yes, if I needed to. Like the game, my son has done some of the Warhammer figurines and all that stuff and the figures. And I can also make a Warhammer. So that's actually, you can either play Warhammer or you can forge a Warhammer. I can forge a Warhammer. I'm actually going to be forging a hammer. I've got some Flutogon right here. I'm going to forge a dog head out of that. So we're going to have that coming up at some point. Oh, and then for some of y'all who might have ever seen one of these, might not have ever seen one of these, this is an ingot that I'm going to be forging into a big billet. So this is a piece of Wootz steel. It's about a 3.5 pound, 4 pound ingot. So that's going to end up getting forged out into a big billet. All right, let's keep it going. I don't think this is going to last very long on this this little stick here because I've already consolidated it down. I've consolidated it down to the thickness of the stick. My son does all kinds of random stuff like that. He primarily does right now 3D animation and mod creation. So he does a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I already have one of those Quagmire arms. My right arm is bigger than my left arm. I mean, my forearms and everything. I do work out this arm to actually compensate for that. I've got this, if I'm forging for a long time, I've got this little kettlebell that I'll go through and lift, work out this muscle that's right, that one that activates right there, because that's the one that activates a lot when you're forging, this muscle that's right here. So I will work this one out just to compensate for this arm getting bigger. So on a day where I forge for like, 5-6 hours, not 3D printing, he does 3D animation. So somebody will give him a concept for what they want animated and he'll put it in Blender or one of his other softwares and he'll animate it, give it all of its its actions, its idle phase where it's just idle and it's just standing there. eating, attacking, running, walking, all of that. So if they want to import it into one of their games, they can. Yeah, you were knocking those hammers out, man. So I have a feeling that on this phase, that billet is going to come off of this stick that I have it welded to. So what I'll probably be doing is just holding it from the side and drawing it out. I don't know how big of a billet we're going to get out of this. I'm going to end up consolidating it down and doing all that fun stuff, but we'll see. We'll play with it. About to come off there, and it's off. Now we're going to grab it with these tongs. Rotate it around. Try not to catch my anvil on fire. I'm going to look at it real quick and just make sure that our layers are doing good. Everything looks like it's good, so I think we'll be fine. But yeah, I figured that this was gonna last a little bit on there. I think it's still hot. Yeah, him doing that is absolutely awesome. So what I'm going to do here, because we're not on that stick right now, I'm going to go ahead and try and compress this down enough to where I can grab it with my knife making tongs, my actual box jaws and all that. But we are fully forge welded. So I'm going to start stretching it out. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to come across the whole entire face of the rectangle, the main body of the rectangle, and I'm going to be hitting it with a straight peen, and we're going to draw out some length and compress it down at the same time. I'm going to be working on one side, putting it back in the forge, flipping it over, working on the other side, putting it back in the forge, flipping it over, working on the other side. If I still had it on the stick or the rod that I had it on there, I could do this with the power hammer, but it's not necessary. Take, flip it around, put it in the forge, do that again. Even though I've still got plenty of heat in it right now, it looks hotter than it is on the camera. I still want it to be nice and hot. So while I'm compressing it down, once I get it stretched out a little bit, I can start forging it a little bit cooler than it is, but yeah. We are forging out I just got in forge welding a GoMai billet that is layers of 1084, 15 and 20, a ladder Damascus, 15 and 20, the 1084. So it's 5 layers of steel. And I just got done forge welding it together. Now I'm going to be drawing it out into a billet. Once I get it compressed down a little bit, I am going to start moving it. Right now we're working on it like this. I am going to do it like this just a little bit. You don't want to forge too much on the sides because you risk rhombusing it. So right now it's really square. If you take it like this and you put it up on its side, you risk accidentally favoring one corner over the other and rhombusing it. So what happens is you're not really slipping the steel, but what you are doing is you're slightly angling it. So you'll concentrate more on this side, and what it'll do is it will push that section of the billet, but really what you're doing is you're twisting the billet at that point, and then when you lay it back down on its face and you start forging it again, you'll start rolling the section that's rhombused over. So this is what happens whenever you screw up the billet being centered. So you want it to stay like that so that all the layers move evenly. But if you accidentally favor this side right here more, what it'll do is you'll just slightly do this to the billet. So you got all your layers here, and then what happens is whenever you take and you lay it on its side and you forge it flat, this section that's hanging out over here will start rolling up, and this section will start rolling down, and before you know it, your outer layer is overhung over your core on both sides. So now your core starts twisting. So yeah. People are ever wondering why they screwed up their billet like that. Back in, but flip it back over to the other side. What we're doing is, again, we are forging on the face of it like this, and we're trying to stretch out length. So we're trying to compress it down and stretch it out at the same time. I'm happy that you're excited about that. That is one of the cool things about Frank and Nita. For one, they've been doing this for like 6 years. Frank and Nita, it's a husband and wife. They're the two bastards from Two Bastards, Texas Smithy and Supply. They're the one that supply all my hammers that I use. And wonderful couple. The cool thing about them is you can actually talk to them and go, hey, here's my idea of what I want. Is that a thing that's possible? And they'll tell you yes or no, and they'll work with you on it. I think that it's got, I don't think you have to worry about it really freezing. It's just like most etchants. I mean, you need to be getting down into the negatives consistently in order to have that stuff freezing on you. I'll tell you right now, this is where a press comes in handy. Being able to forge everything real even as you go makes life so much easier. it back over to the other side. And you'll see that I'm going to start getting a little bit more aggressive with the hammer strikes as we do this. You are the press, be one with the press. That's true. So we're working on a GoMai billet right now. Just forge welded the layers all together. Right now what we're doing is we're using the straight peen to stretch out the billet before we end up forging a profile out of it. That's where I always say that I'm the power hammer. Gotta use these arms for something. But yeah, so that's what we're working on right now. We're going through and getting everything stretched out, getting it lengthened. We're turning this slightly square of a rectangle into a longer rectangle so that we can then turn it into a knife looking thing. I am happy about these EDCs that I'm working on. I've got some handle material for them. I'm working on knocking out these EDCs so that I have knives for the beginning of the year. I really like that profile for an EDC. It's comfortable, simple. They're going to look really cool with the whole Brute de Forge and Hamoons on them. And then I did another ring knife, but I did it slightly different. I did it kind of a blacksmith style. So this is actually rounded and tapered. So it's actually fully rounded all the way around it. It's tapered, and then I'm going to be doing a copper or brass loop that joins these two sections together. But just a cool knife profile with a little bit of blacksmith techniques added into it. Ukraine, what's up? Transition between the blade and the handle on the scales. How do you do the transition between the blade and the handle? So the ricasso area. So whenever I'm doing all my forging, I've got one that I can actually show you that really well. That shows up nice. So this one should show you. So one of the things that I do, let's see if it'll actually show you here. But this section where it is, there we go, where it's kind of shinier going up towards the flats here, and then duller in this section, I planish everything from the handle through the ricasso up into the flats whenever I'm doing these. And that leaves me a real smooth finish on the ricasso right here, going from the plunge line up into the blade. So I have a nice, really smooth, I don't planish it cold, but I planish it very gray. If that makes any sense. But we'll get some light behind this. See if I can do this in a way where you can actually try it. So this is with that ruler on there, and me holding it flat. So that is what I do, and it comes out super flat, super smooth. That's how I get that. And then I also will take some of my blades and I'll leave the tang fatter so that whenever I grind the tang flat, I get a nice flat area for my scales to work into, and then I have a nice smooth texture in here, but there's still a little bit of a texture left. Now, of course, whenever this forge scale comes off, it's flatter than that, but I will leave the tang fatter, and then I will grind it up into my ricasso area. All right, let's forge some more. You really want to be forging even on both sides with this. Because what you can do is rhombus it the other way too, where, hold on, I'll show you in just a second. So you can also rhombus it while it's flat this way. Move this out, this in, and fold everything over that way as well. You want to be compressing evenly as you go. The cool thing is, I should be able to get a decent length out of this because I've got to compress this down about another half of what it is right now. Because right now we're at about 3/8 of an inch. We're at about 3/8 of an inch, and I want this to be about a 3/16 thick blade, so we should be able to compress it down quite a bit. So B-roll and clean up the audio a little bit, yeah. So 5 minutes is its set time. There's still going to be a curing time. So 5 minutes is like your working time, how long you have to really work it before it gets unmanageable. You still will have a cure time on that. A lot of that's still going to have 12 hours to 24 hours worth of actual curing time. So you're going to have just like all 5-minute epoxies are like that. What's up, Pinto? One of the best knife makers in our country right there. So you'll have 5-minute epoxy. Again, it's 5 minutes of work time. And then you'll have a curing time, which is separate from that. So that just lets you know how long you have to be able to screw with it, fiddle with it before it starts to harden and get it to where you can't really mess with it. It starts getting super tacky. In the forge. Cool thing is, no matter how big of a blade I get on this, I can always take it and turn it into a hidden tang. So, it's all good. Yeah, so, and I'll tell you this, one of the things to know about epoxies and 5-minute epoxies, the JB Weld 5-minute epoxy that comes in the 2 tubes, that epoxy, I wouldn't say it has a shelf life, but it kind of does. You'll hit a point with some of that stuff, whether it be not a good batch of it or it just messing up in your shop to where whenever you go and you mix it, it won't actually harden. It'll stay tacky for a long time. And then you got to take your scales off, clean everything, and put a better epoxy on it. What's a good anvil size? Currently, small railroad track. That's fine. The anvil that I have back off over here, this is a Vevor anvil. Of course, you're not typically going to have a guillotine tool sitting right there. That's a guillotine tool that typically goes in a hardy hole, but I just set it on the side so that I can still use the face of the anvil. But that's 130 pounds. That's awesome. You can use a, bring y'all back down. Might as well zoom y'all in over here just a little bit. There we go. So whenever, if you want to get an anvil, I would just say go to Harbor Freight, get one of those Doyle anvils, and call it good. It's one of the red colored anvils that Harbor Freight has. Use that anvil for years. And then eventually, if you want to get like a traditional anvil, like this one right here, this is a very vintage Trenton Ajax anvil. Love it. 170 pounds. Fantastic anvil. That Vevor anvil that's over here is a fantastic anvil. They have them on sale for like $250 to $280 here and there. I like that anvil. It's got a super smooth face. I use it for making things perfect sometimes. And yeah, you can get that, or you can just get that Harbor Freight Doyle anvil and call it good. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what you use, right, Duck? Isn't that the one you use? Got a nice pointy horn on it. Okay. What I'm going to do on this next heat, I'm going to go through with the big old fat Fire Creek Forge hammer and the big flat face that's on this, and I'm going to smooth out, kind of planish steel, make sure it's all one thickness, and I'm going to go ahead and compress the height down a little bit. Right now, because this hammer, the face, isn't the same width as the steel that we were working with. It has been, like if this hammer face was wider than the steel or taller than the steel, and the hammer was hanging off either side of it, as we were forging, it would have primarily just forged length. But because this wasn't the full length, there's times when it is hitting from about 3/4 of the face of the steel down to the edge, and at those points it is actually widening the steel, making the steel taller. I don't need it to be taller. I need this thing to only be like an inch and a half tall. Right now it's almost 2 inches tall. So I need to compress that down about half an inch. But I want it nice and smooth. I want to be able to inspect it, make sure that everything is even and uniform before I start compressing this side down. Now, of course, some of it's going to get ground away, and if the center core walks off a little bit, I don't really care. We're just having fun here. We are working on a GoMai billet that is 1084, 15N20, and ladder pattern Damascus. The core is ladder pattern Damascus. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean up the edges a little bit. You can see how we're not perfectly even. We're not perfectly flat on the sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind through that a little bit. So a lot of noises, but we're going to zoom it out just a hair. Good enough. We don't need to get too crazy with this. Evidently people were like, I am not here to watch you grind stuff. Want to let that heat all the way back up. But yeah. It was funny because I started doing that and it was like everybody just bounced. Eric, how would I go about largening a hardy hole in an anvil? So the easiest way to do that is to get one of those little sanders that are like the long, sleek sanders. Get down in there and just sit there and sand it for a long period of time, or get yourself a file and just file it open. There's not really a good way to open out a hardy hole to make it larger. Easiest thing to do is just make the stuff that you're going to be using in your hardy hole smaller to fit your hardy hole. But yeah, that's a lot of filing, a lot of material moving. Nice anvil, but it's super small hardy hole. Yeah, and you can do it, but it takes a while to get that open. Like, you have to get in there with a file and just file it open until you get to the size that you want. It does not sound fun. So what I'm going to do on this next little heat here, we'll zoom y'all back in again just a little bit. So on this next heat, what we're going to go ahead and do is just make sure everything's good, forge it down a little bit, and then I'm going to start compressing it down and trying to get some length out of this by compressing the height down. Again, this is the number one way to screw up a SandMai or a GoMai billet. What I'm about to do right now is the number one way to do it. The number two way to do it is to forge a profile out of a GoMai or a Kumai or a SandMai, to go through and actually forge a full profile. That's the second way to screw up a SandMai, GoMai, or Kumai. The first way is to do what I'm about to do right now and compress it down. Anytime you're forging on one of these like billets and you're forging the height down, you risk screwing up so much crap. You risk shearing off one of the layers and creating a D-lam. You risk, because you didn't do it perfectly within the heats, you risk rhombusing it and shifting over your center core. You risk doing so many things wrong in this step of this. So just take your time. I hope you don't screw it up, and know that if you do screw it up, screw it. It doesn't really matter. Just make another thing. These are the only thing I can tell you. Another thing that I'm going to take slowly. There's no need to rush on this particular part right here. Don't do it. Take your time. Throwing for content. But you know, when it boils down to it, it's like if it ends up working out, it's great. But I'll tell you, I've got, before I built this shop and I had my other shop, my little 11 by 11, so my first like 5 SandMai bit blades that I made were all failures. So the first 5, just I could not get them to forge weld properly. I had D-lams, I had issues, whatever, it happened, it sucked. I had ones that blew apart in the quench, all kinds of stuff. And so for about a year, I didn't have good lighting in the shop, and most of my lights were set up on magnets. They were like magnets on the butts of the lights so that I could kind of put them wherever I wanted. So in my shop, along the whole top of it, so on these little top studs across here, so all the little top studs that run across the walls, I had knife billets screwed in up here, and I used those for the magnet holders. And the press, push up the tip thickness. Yeah, of course, Sharap is a magician. Hey, see you later, Pinto. Yeah, Sharap is a magician with steel. I swear he practices witchcraft. Because that dude will stick stuff that should never go together. I need to get this out of there. A little bit. There we go. But yeah, he'll be like, you know what I'm sticking together, guys? Hopes and dreams. Put it in the can, forge welding it. And what do you know? Them hopes and dreams turn into a knife. Yeah, he probably does forge really, really hot. What's up, Randy? Merry Christmas to you as well. Yeah, Sharap is probably... Like, I've seen him make some of these Damascus patterns, and I was just looking at him going, What? That doesn't even... That's crazy. And he's just like, yeah, I started off with deck screws and like, I don't know, aluminum foil or some crap. Not really aluminum foil, but anyways, it's just, he'll throw like this random stuff together. I saw him forge a billet out of screws that were just like together, not in a canister. Like they were just like, he just like stacked screws together and then welded the ends of them and then put a stick on it, put it in the forge, and smashed all that together. Like, I don't know how you don't get voids, but he's just like, you know what? Who needs canisters? Who needs powder steel? He just like forged all that into a billet and it was successful. And it's crazy. The cats that hang out in my backyard are like being nosy, coming around the corner over here. They're not my cats. They just hang out in my yard. Been in my yard for like years. They're still skittish. we are slowly but surely taking this and pulling it down in height, getting a little bit of length out of it. I'm making sure that I'm flipping it as I go, because you can barely see it, but the bottom is narrower than the top. So I'll go ahead and bring that down and bring it down a little bit narrower than the bottom is right now. And I'll just gradually do that, flip it back and forth as I go. And that way, whatever side that I'm forging on is nice and hot. The side that I previously forged on is now being held by the tongs, and the part that's nice and hot that I want to compress down is the part that's hot. Yeah, you know what I mean. Kind of while you peen everything, kind of the fasteners. Yeah, he does have super heavy equipment. He's got a lot of really nice tools. One of my favorite things that he uses is he's got this little grinder that uses like a 2x30 belt, and it is just a contact wheel and a little pulley. And a little wheel. So it's a contact wheel and a little wheel. So it's just like, it's like that's the only thing that that's there for, is just grinding in bevels or whatever. And on the other side of it, he's got a disc sander that is just the little disc at the end of a grinding axle, and he just does his thing and gets his bevels nice and smooth and all that with those. And I just like, he's got all these little tools that I think are really cool. Yeah, the little Doyle anvil is awesome. I thought about getting one just to do a review on it. I think it's bobbling around. Okay, that's now narrower than the other side. There we go. So what I'm going to try and do is get this steel to where it is about the same height as this hammer, so that whenever I go to stretch it out again, it primarily just focuses on stretch and not making it taller. I just want length. Now I could, of course, switch to the 5-pound, because it's got a really big face on it. I mean, you're looking at quite a bit bigger face. The only thing is, the face is slightly radiused on there. That's flat. There's a slight radius to this. And I wanted it that way. So it really, really, really compresses and draws steel. And if I have that radius on there, it's going to slightly push things out, not just stretch. Yeah, the T he does is awesome. Little things with little hammers. Right here, I can just forge the rest of it with this ball peen. Just do all the rest of it with that guy. Yeah, that real pointy horn on that Anvil is what I like about it. That's the reason why I suggest the Doyle Anvil sometimes over the V4. It's a baby, little bitty old baby hammer. Almost down to the face of that hammer. You see again, we just keep bringing it down, tapering it. We're getting length out of it, doing that same process. And we're keeping everything nice and centered. I'll tell you, this is one of the reasons why I don't typically do these on the live streams. Because really, it's spending a long time just forging one rectangle into a slightly longer rectangle. So, and if I was doing a piece of Damascus, it really wouldn't have to be that big of a deal because you don't have to worry about it being centered or anything too much because you're going to end up taking and folding it, doing all that stuff. But a lot of this is taking your time and doing this. Now, I'll be real with you. If you think about it this way, they give the Forged and Fire guys 3 hours to weld up their steel, put it in the forge, heat it up, forge it down, and then forge the profile of a knife. Then go over to the grinder, grind the rest of the profile, grind in bevels, and take it and quench it. That is their process they do in 3 hours. I'm taking my time on this, doing it by hand, not with a press or power hammer. If we were using a press, I would already be done with this. But it's one of those things where sometimes I see the show and I go, 3 hours, do some of that stuff. It's pretty crazy, it's pretty wild. But I know that in the heat of the moment, that takes a lot of work, because I have friends that have been on it and they've told me their stories of that show and being on it and how much stress comes with the competition side of it, being filmed, not being able to have like fans going or anything like that because I might mess with the recording, so it's just super hot on the studio and the set and all that. So I mean, there's a lot going on and stuff like that, but I see that and I think, geez, 3 hours is crazy. Y'all seen what I've been able to make in 3 hours. Y'all seen what I've been able to make in an hour, much less 3 hours. Here to talk about life. Yeah, with the power hammer and press, it is more doable. Of course, if I was using the power hammer, it'd be one thing. I do have access to that, but you know, I'm having fun here. I'm not trying to compete with anything. Y'all see me make knives in the time that I've made 4 knives in 3 hours. One of them was a huge kukri. But I respect the guys that have been on that show because that's a lot of stress. Doing good, staying consistent, thickness, we're getting length out of that all at the same time. We're forging it while it's hot. We're not trying to do anything while it's cold. Because we don't want to screw anything up. Or the big cameras and record those. Yep. You could definitely do a 3-hour knife. The ones that I did, of course, I have one of my friends. He's working on one of the knives that I did. But I did. Let's see. Where was the other one? Look for it. So I did that because Steve Jennings brought me a 3/8 of an inch thick bar of 1095, 3/8 of an inch by like 1 foot by 1.5 inches or something like that, and I forged that massive son of a gun with distal taper and all that. So I did that. This little guy right here with distals and all that stuff. You can see how fine I got that tip and tang. That was using a piece of the steel that would have been from the handle area, showing how much steel people grind away. I made a whole knife with what you would typically grind away from that area if you just do stock removal. So I did those two, plus I did a fighter style camp knife, which was about 13-inch overall length, and I did a full integral with the integral bolster, bevels forged, and I I-beamed the handle. So it's a full integral knife, I-beamed all of that, little EDC knife. I did those 4 knives in that time period. Again, most people don't forge like I forge. This is me barely doing anything. Like, I'm not even getting tired or sore from this particular process. Almost down to the height that I want. be able to stretch out that length.
Eating a ton of Takis to clear your sinuses.
That's one way to do it, though. So, show y'all this. This is what we forged last weekend. This is how it looks like now. So, that's the knife we forged last weekend out of the 26C3. So that's going to have a wall handle on it. I'm going to do a hamon, everything on it. But that is going to be a fun knife to use, and I will be using this one. But yeah, that's what we did on last week's live stream. And I did film the process of making the 6 EDCs. That's going to go up on a Tuesday, Shop Talk Tuesday. So I filmed the forging of them. I filmed some of the grinding. I'm going to grind in the bevels and film that aspect of it. And I think that's going to be the end of that part of that video. So it'll be from the chunks of steel all the way to being at the bevel grinding part of it, and that way you'll see like the holes drilled in the tang, you'll see the bevels ground, all that, and then the video after that will be attaching handles to all of them, profiling the handles, getting them finished up, things like that. I know it's been a little while since I released a new video content-wise, so with new builds. I'm making sure to planish as I forge the height. I'm making sure that I'm planishing during that too. What I don't want to do is really I-beam it and risk, again, shifting over that center core. By I-beaming it, I mean, well, make it look like an I-beam. I don't want to mushroom the head or the tops of them out like this right here, where this is flared out and that's flared out, and then I end up accidentally shifting over the center core. Don't want that to be a thing. Okay. Just made a blade from a Toyota Tundra tie rod. Still, I'm not sure what it's treated. Yeah, so you'll have a lot of those steels that are going to be, they're going to be kind of like an ADC RV2 because they're going to have that chromium in them. So I've made some of my knives out of this coil spring right here. So this is an Audi A4 coil spring, and it's 5160 with a little bit more chromium in it. Hey buddy, can you talk about alloys, which is important for tooling it? Woo! Yeah, that is, there are people who make whole entire video series about that. And there's people that are way more specialized in metallurgy than I am. Like I like watching Fairpeak Forge talk about it and things like that. Really interested to see how this piece turns out with that ladder Damascus in the center. I wanted to get a blade large enough to where whenever I grind in the bevels, you could really see what it's going to look like. Let's see here. A lot of information. If there's a possibility that it was Toby. Too late, we got the screenshot. I didn't even get to read it. I got like the first 2 words. So I should be pretty much down to where I need to be. Need it to be whenever I do this next round of forging. I should have it down to the height that I need, and we'll go from there. You can see how much length we've got out of this just from doing that consolidation. Right now, no clue. The number one thing that I lose in my shop is rulers. I'll measure it whenever I pull it back out of there. We should be right at about 6 inches right now. Like seriously, the number one thing that I lose in this shop is pretty much always a ruler. Some sort of measuring device. Found it. Yep, so we should be right at about 6 inches on that billet. I would like for this knife to be roughly at least a 3-inch blade, 4-inch blade. If I can get a 5-inch blade out of it, that'd be great. Of course, we still got a lot of stretching to do, so we'll see how it goes. To check on dinner and he nabbed the computer. We're doing Instapot beans. So pinto beans with bacon cutoffs. So a whole bunch of the end cuts of bacon and all this stuff. And then of course cornbread, sweet cornbread.
Man, it's gonna be good.
I had to go get a drink. Been out here forging this all entire time. Thirsty. All right. Let's check her out. We are good. Now we are able to go all the way across it. Straight Pete. So now we can get ourselves some length. We've already got plenty of length out of it, but I still want a decent amount of length on there. No joke, whenever I first read that, I read mill my own floors and make breads, and I was like, how do those two things come together? How does milling your floor and breads? And then I was like, flour. That makes sense. Yeah, both styles of cornbreads have their places. The one that's savory with salt belongs at someone else's house, and the sweet cornbread belongs at my house. So they have their own places. One place is at my house, the other place is at someone else's house. What's up, Mom? How you doing? Great homemade dressing alongside turkey. Nisha said, yeah, savory cornbread's fantastic. When you crumble it up and you turn it into a stuffing, that's great. I agree with that. You don't see me eating chili with cake? Hey, I get it. I do, but I like sweet cornbread. That's my thing. I like sweet cornbread. Sweet tea and sweet cornbread. None of that unsweet tea and all that crap. All right, so start stretching it out. on both sides. Right now we are over 6 inches. So I'm going to go ahead, switch it back to the other side, toss it in there, keep going. Remember, our goal for this is to get down to about 3/16 of an inch on this. So we've got quite a bit to compress down and turn into length. She loves pecan pie. I'm allergic to pecan pie. Beans and chocolate cake. Isn't that what they do overseas? Like bread pudding or whatever it is? Jalapenos in it. Ate Oreos with frozen peas? That's just, no, sir. No, sir. Was she pregnant? Probably not, because you said kids like frozen peas, so I'm assuming it's your little sister? So, probably not pregnant. But that is some pregnant activities right there. Like right now, if I wanted to make a smaller knife, I've got plenty of material to just turn that into a knife right now. But we're still at like 1/4 of an inch. We need to bring that down, still quite a bit. But like right now, even without forging a blade profile, if I wanted to stock removal it right now, that'll be good. And of course, I can only do so much of the profile on this because when you think about it, I still have the welded material at the 4 corners. And what I mean by that is where I welded it with the welder. And I actually went through and I welded the corners before I actually put it in the kerosene and all that. So I don't want to forge those into any particular part of the blade because those have got to get ground off. But my goal is to forge a little bit of a point and forge a little bit of a handle notch because I want to be able to maximize those sections of the steel and get a little bit of extra length out of it. So by compressing those areas down, I'll get extra length. Now, this is where a rolling mill would be absolutely awesome. So one of the things that you're going to see me doing, if you've watched this at all the entire time I've done it, every bit of time that I've used this hammer, I have not used this side, like at all. So all the stretching I've been doing has been with this. That's one of the reasons why I like the fat peen versus, like this has its places, a more narrow peen like this, like the John Norwood hammer, that has its moments. But because of the way that this hammer is set up, it draws everything out, but because it has a broader bridge right here, I can take and forge in between those valleys and hit those down, and it's like I'm using a flat side and a cross beam at the same time. I'm just creating slight gaps as I go, and the peaks, I'm forging them down at the same time. So I'm going over the whole entire thing as I'm forging. So I'm creating valleys, and then I'm forging the peaks down with the straight peen. And I like that because I'm not having to worry about creating super deep dips or valleys that I have to flatten out. So it's just pure length that I'm getting out of this. And I'm not having to switch sides of the hammer. There ain't nothing like being able to planish with the straight peen. Nice bar right there. Keeping it even in thickness as we go. So whenever this started out, I still have the piece that I substituted. This was a piece of 80 CRB2. This was the center core. I substituted this for the Damascus. So this is how tall and long that started off as. So it originally was 1.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches by about 1.5 inches is what this started out as, and it would have been, this is 1/4, those are 3/16, so it's 3/16 and then 1/16. So, well, 3 3/16 and then 2 1/16. That's not bad. We've been able to get, like this bar will probably be closer to about 8 inches by 1.5 inches whenever it's done. What are y'all talking about over here? Are y'all still talking about food? My wife eats Hawaiian pizza, so you know she likes pineapples on stuff. I'm not a Hawaiian pizza person. Right now we're at 7 3/4 of an inch. Seven 3/4 of an inch, and we haven't forged any of the profile yet. It's not bad. Start at the same limit doesn't mean they go to. I agree. And I grew up as a pizza person. My dad's been in pizza most of my life. He's been one of the franchise owners for Papa John's since I was like 14. That was a long time ago. You look up at how long Papa John's has been in place, like a restaurant. Guys, I kind of feel like I want to go against my I'll tell you what I really want to do with this because I feel like this is going to be a really good knife. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to forge this into a hidden tang. So I'm going to forge the tang down, and y'all are just going to have to trust me on this one. I want to do the blade stock removal. I don't want to forge the blade. I don't want to screw this up because I have a feeling that this is going to be a really good looking knife. And if I go through and I forge the tip on this and I screw this up, I'm going to be pissed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forge in the tang, and I'm going to do the blade section of my stock removal. And I'll do a video for y'all for that. Either that or next week on the live stream. How about this? On the live stream next week, I'll show y'all what profile I'm going to do. I'll grind the profile, grind the bevels, and test etch it for you on the live stream next week. That way y'all get to see that part of it. But I think that I'm better off not forging the tip in this. It's risking screwing it up. Nice plannish thickness on here.
Okay, what do y'all saying here? All right, good having you on here, Steve. I hope you don't lose momentum too, because you are rocking with those live streams, man. So just to give you an idea on how fast that growth is, it took me a year to go from like 0 subscribers to like 200 subscribers. And then of course it progressed from there. But you had like Dennis Tyrell for the first year only got up to like 300 subscribers. And he was making content back then like he makes now. And he still only had like 300 subscribers. So, you know, he's got like 500,000 or something like that now. So the amount of momentum that you have right now, getting the subscribers you got going on, that is killing it. That's crushing it. Yep. And I think that you're at that sweet spot. And I'll tell you this, one of the things to know, whenever we do the YouTube Knife Makers Challenges, you only have to have 1,000 subscribers to try and participate in it. Once you have 1,000 subscribers, you get to put your name in the hat to try and participate in it. Like, as a YouTuber, these cats are like, hey, cats, no drama. Make ourselves a tang. Go in and start forging in a tang on that. And again, because of this, what we're doing, I'm going to keep that tang hot while I'm forging it. Setting down that tang. Yeah, I know, again, but I don't need to do that. You gotta remember, if I was just forging this and I just had a piece of steel, that one heat, I'd have had a tang. The guillotine tool's great and all, but this is gonna end up probably being a fighter style knife. So it's gonna have a little ricasso. I might do a guard on it and all that because I think it would look cool. But I don't need to get too crazy with it. Really, I'm just doing this to get the extra length. But I'm just being careful so that I don't screw up the billet again. In there. Perfect for fighting poverty. Goal is forge weld bolsters on an integral chef's knife or something. I agree. I like that. I still can't wait to finish this knife. But I can't wait to finish it. I mean, I'm gonna wait and I'm gonna finish it at some point. Still gotta do a little bit of work to it. But the one where we I-beamed the integral bolster, I think that's going to look really cool going into the block that's going to go into the front of this, because you'll actually see the end grain of the block on the sides. But yeah, that gaucho where I upset and I created an integral bolster out of a flat bar. That thing is going to be sick. Talk about a camp chef knife slash whatever you want to do with it knife. That is going to be a sick son of a gun. I've got a really cool faceted handle that I'm going to put on this. Tongs. Go ahead and planish this blade a little bit. Okay, you cats need to chill. They're like fighting underneath my other shop. You hear them bad boys? You gave the EDC to your dad and your wife wanted it? That happens. I gotta make her a knife. Forge weld soon. Yeah, so one of the knives that I have lined up, I've got one of those like, yeah, here you go. I use one of these as a door stopper. This, I use this as a door stopper. It's got like spider webs and stuff on it. So it's a railroad spring clip. So I've got these all over the place. And I'm gonna take one of those and forge that into a buoy and do a integral guard. So I'm gonna do an integral bolster guard where I actually step down the guard into the blade. The whole entire guard itself is all integral into the actual build. So I'm gonna upset the shoulders and do all of that. That was one of the reasons why I made this right here, to be able to upset, and I've got a couple more that I made to be able to, I've got one that's like a chisel grind on it and a few other things that are gonna let me be able to upset the shoulders and the steel and all of that stuff to be able to draw that guard out and have it be all integral. Make sure we're all planted down to even thickness. There's that. There's our blade. Let's see what we're down to thickness wise. I swear to God. This damn ruler. It's like one of those things where I set it down and it gets camouflaged. Where you set your keys down and you're looking for your keys, but they're literally like in front of you. Why aren't y'all keeping track of my ruler for me? I've got a plastic ruler, but I don't want to use that. It'll melt. I swear. Hold on, I'm gonna just let that chill for just a second. I want to give you all the dimensions for this, so I need to find that ruler. Where's that piece of steel I was holding? I'm telling y'all the dimensions of what we started off with. Okay, there's the piece of steel. How do I lose a ruler? There it is. Goodness. Like, how do I lose a ruler that fast after talking about... Yeah, y'all, shush. Okay. We are at exactly 3/16 of an inch. So... on there. Yoink. So 3/16 of an inch by, at the tallest point, 1.5 inches, lowest point, 1 3/8 inches. The overall length of just the cutting edge of the blade is 7 inches. So it's going to have a 7-inch blade on it. So 7-inch blade, of course, it's not going to be this profile. I'm going to end up making a really nice profile to it. There is going to be a slight step down right here going into the tang. I left the tang a little bit thicker width-wise. I'll end up forging that down a little bit. You're probably like, you can't tell there's any width difference, but if you look right there, I've got more width. I'm going to end up taking that and drawing a little bit of height out, and that way my tang's a little bit taller, and I'm going to step that down, and I'll probably put a nice taper on this tang, because I want the tang to be about 3/4 of the length of the handle, which, I mean, right now it probably is about that, but I want it to be a little bit longer than what it is and be nice and robust. But we're going to have a nice heel ricasso area, and then blade profile. That is going to be a nice knife. Of course, all you can see right now is that I've made it
the right thickness that I was looking for, which was 3/16 of an inch. If y'all didn't know this about me, I am autistic. I'm on the spectrum, and one of my little isms lets me measure things by eye real well and get symmetry and control the thickness on stuff like that. So whenever I'm making a lot of this stuff and I'm planishing and forging these blades, part of that is because it's the way my brain works. A lot of it is because I've practiced and I've forged a whole lot, but by default, I've always been good at that. Whenever I did stonework and I had to do complex, like on countertops, and I had to do like complex edges on the countertops, I did all those by hands before we ever did a router. So like multi-step waterfall edges, all of that, I actually cut them and hand shaped all of them like through 10-foot, 15-foot slabs of granite, the whole entire edge, all even and symmetrical, by hand and eye. And that's one of those things that I wouldn't say I luck out, because you get the other parts of autism with it, but high functioning autism is awesome. Man, Bud gave it away. Okay, but how are you this good at talking? So, whenever I was younger, I did not talk. I didn't talk till I was like 5, 6 years old. You can ask my mom about that. My brothers tended to talk for me, and learning to read and doing a lot of that stuff was harder for me whenever I was growing up. But I learned to speak this way as a defensive mechanism while I was growing up. I won't get into what that was all about or why, but I learned to talk my way out of things in order to not have to deal with certain things. So it worked out, but for me, there's I don't like it when things throw off my schedule. That absolutely throws me into a whole thing. But anyways, yes, luckily I am I am able to handle that, but it works out. And my oldest son, Xander, he's also autistic, and he's on a spectrum, and he can create 3D models and 3D things. He's been able to do it for a long time. He's been able to draw things in 2D on paper, and then know how to cut them. When we cut them out, he could fold them into 3D shapes and all that. And he'd never been taught how to do that. He just one day drew something in 2D and told me to cut it out, and then he sat there and he folded it, and it was a full fish skeleton with the ribs and everything. It was mind-boggling. Okay. We're going to let that turn off. We're going to let that anneal inside there. Let it do its thing. Push it all the way in. So, yeah, you know how it goes. Drama! I'm not trying to zoom y'all in on my shirt and then zoom y'all out. I'm just trying to make sure that we're all the way out. There's my TRE logo. Why is it wanting to do that? Okay, there we go. We're good now. Emotional damage. So yes, it does work out, and a lot of people that have this, they have their one little more or less superpower or whatever it is, that it's like your brain blocks out
unwanted stuff for other things so you can get all of the knowledge and skill on the thing that you're ultra focused on at that time. But in order to have that, you just don't remember people's names or their faces or like phone numbers or like other things that normal people remember real easily, like songs or parts of movies or all of this other stuff. Like they're really good at remembering all these little bits of information. But for some of us, those bits of information that we don't prioritize or think are cool, they just get control alt deleted out of the brain. And the stuff that you're interested in, you just laser focus on that stuff. And it's cool. It's fun. Yeah, that is a thing, Robert. That is absolutely a thing. There's a lot of people that were probably more on the spectrum than they think. That's the reason why certain things like what was the other thing? There was another thing that was kind of like autism. It's a different word for it. I can't remember what it is. You know how it goes. But they've taken some of those things and they've put them in the Asperger's. They've taken those and they've put them in the category of the autism spectrum. And so there's probably a lot of people that would fall into that, but were maybe diagnosed with ADD or ADHD. And that might be the thing that, you know, you could be more on the spectrum or you could just be ADD or ADHD. It kind of depends on what you're doing. But yeah. Until we had my son, until we had Xander, I would have never thought that I was on the spectrum or anything like that. And yeah, it's crazy how many things you learn, how much stuff you learn in the process of learning about that and growing with that. He's a little spurgy. I've got cousins that are like that. I've got a main cousin, Austin, that's like that. That dude could remember the capital of everything on the world and the planet. Like he knew the capital of every country, every state, everything on the whole entire globe whenever he was like 4. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Anyways, without going on that tangent, even though we went all the way on that tangent, I think I'm going to go inside and eat some food. Makes diagnosis difficult. My dogs and parents hid it from me, focusing on my brother. That does happen. And sometimes it's not so much them hiding it as much as other people get focused on. If you're more high functioning, the people around you who might have more challenges or be more challenging might get more of the focus. Go get that overly sweet cornbread cake. You better believe it. But yeah, some people they might have get like the higher functioning autism people or the higher functioning people get kind of put to the wayside because they focus on the people who have more challenges the most, because you can kind of just do your own thing and be fine. We had that a little bit with Xander and certain classes and stuff like that, where he is like the highest functioning of the group, so he kind of just gets to do his own thing. And at certain times, I didn't feel like he was getting as much of a focus, but luckily with the way he is just amazing and a blessing to be around. He is the happiest person you will ever meet. He wants to hug everybody. So you know how you have some people that are on the spectrum and contact or like that person-to-person contact, shaking hands, eye contact, hugs, kind of, they don't like any of that. Xander is like, I'm going to stare at you. I'm going to hug you.
I want to pat you on the back. I want to make sure you're good. I want to make sure you're happy. I want to check in on you. And when it comes to rules, he likes to abide by the rules. He likes to, you know, if it's a set thing, he wants to make sure that we're doing that he's doing that people around him's doing that. Nobody's breaking the rules or the laws, stuff like that. Glass child syndrome. Okay. Yeah. That's the thing that happens. But yeah, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to eat some food. Guys, next weekend, what we're going to do is we're going to change it up a little bit. And instead of, there's my beautiful, wonderful mom. I was blessed to have her in my life growing up. Her name is Janet Jackson. But I was blessed to have her in my life. She is the strongest person. So yeah, she's an awesome woman. And yeah, but yes, I'm going to go in, get some food, do my thing, eat. Next weekend, we'll be grinding that knife. So we're going to be veering away from the forging, and we'll be doing some 2x72 work, profiling, grinding bevels, showing off how well this either turned out or got screwed up. We'll go from there. Guys, I'll catch y'all in the next one. I'm working on that video, so we'll have that coming out here soon too. And I'm working on 2 videos, one for the Dragon Forge and one for the knives that we forged. Y'all have an amazing night. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Bye, y'all. Oh, there's my mom. Beautiful wife, kiddos. Love you too, Mom. Watch the live stream. Get 3 times as many views. Right. We'll see how that goes. I like doing the forging ones, but catch y'all later.